Well, messed everything up. Oh. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I even have a script here. So this is going to be a very intimate gathering, which I appreciate, but it's an immersive experience into the life and works of Carl Sandburg. How many of you are aware of who Carl Sandburg is? Smart people, smart people. He actually wrote this play. He became very smitten with some of the poetry of Carl, and the more he studied, the more he dove in deeper. And in 2019, 2018, 2017, those years, he's going, I'm going to write about this. I'm going to write a play about this. And I'll give it to somebody else to act it. And then it came back to him. He was the actor. So that I just think is so exciting. And he even went so far. This is the dignity of who Max Walter is. He even was okayed by the family of Sandburg to have the permission to endorse this play and impersonate their grandfather's legacy. So also in the back, if you are really as smitten as he was, that he has a book that he's written for only $15, and it's honor system. You can put the $15 in the basket and take yourself a book. And he said it features 50 full or partial poems and 10 of Sandburg's rutabaga children's stories. So a little gem to take home with you. So again, thank you. Those of you that are familiar know where the restrooms are. Silence your phones. Got that part? Oh, and the crowd becomes active. Very good. All right, you're going to hear a little intro, and then you will see the play will begin. Are you ready? Yes. All right. Thank you.
The fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over city and harbor on silent oranges and moves on. The fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over city and harbor on silent oranges and moves on.
58 years I've been in a hush. And now it appears I'm on some type of platform again with an audience in front of me. Well, I remember strange things would blow through my window on the wings of a night wind. And I never once worried about my destiny. And so, my name is Carl Sandburg. And I was born in Galesburg, Illinois in 1878, a long time ago. But before we get to all of that, I am glad you are here. And I hope that you get what you want. Do you want affidavits? Tonight, we stand amidst the great wishing windows. And the law says that we are free to be wishing all night long at these windows. And so, shall I raise my right hand and swear to you in the monotone of a notary public? This is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Well, with these windows wide open, let's begin. When I was coming up, I had two ambitions: to be a poet and to be an orator. And I had written a lecture on Walt Whitman titled "The Poet of Democracy." And that lecture allowed me to travel anywhere in America I wanted to go. And I wanted to go everywhere. These were the days just before the advent of radio, when many town parks and city squares would have a platform erected in their center. And if you could hold an audience, you could stay up there as long as you'd like. I loved being on those platforms, reading, reciting my poems, sharing about the life and the works of Walt Whitman, America's greatest poet, teaching what he said about the value and the fragility of democracy. And when I was finished with all that, I would grab my guitar and I would sing and play American folk songs that I was constantly discovering. I loved it all. The people, the experiences, and travel. For I believed in what Emerson had said, that expression is half the man. And when I read that, I realized I was batting 500 nearly right out of the gate. And in those days, I did have the man or the woman who would come up and they would say to me, "Now, I don't get your poetry, Mr. Sandburg, but my son enjoys it, and I'm beginning to wonder if I'm old-fashioned." Or, "Now, I've tried to read your poetry, Mr. Sandburg, and it doesn't mean anything to me. But my daughter has studied you in college, and she has all your books, and she's trying to tell me what they're about." And so, what I decided to do was in the preface of my 5th book of poetry, titled "Good Morning America," published 1928. In the preface, before all those poems, I decided that I would try to define poetry, because definitions are important and because it's poetry. And what I came up with were 38 one-sentence definitions. Poetry is the projection across silence of cadences arranged to break that silence with definite intentions of echoes, syllables, and wavelengths. Poetry is a sky dark with a wild duck migration. Poetry is a puppet show where riders of skyrockets and divers of sea fathoms, they gossip about the 6th sense and the 4th dimension. My complete book of poems, published 1950, Pulitzer. Herein are 7 books all fastened into one, over 800 attempts, and each written between the years 1910 and 1950. And in those 40 years, the world saw World War I, the gay post-war prosperity years, the Great Depression, World War II, peace and the Cold War. It was global drama on a colossal scale. And my goal from the very beginning was to create art that spoke to the heart of humanity. And indeed, the critic and the poet, Harriet Monroe, she described this speech torn from the heart. My first book was titled Chicago Poems, published 1916. In the city of Chicago, my city, was the subject of all those early poems. Well, this began the book, and it set my career on its way. Chicago. Hog butcher for the world. Tool maker. Stacker of wheat. Player with railroads. And the nation's freight handler. Stormy. Husky. Brawling. City of the big shoulders. They tell me you are wicked. And I believe them, for I've seen your painted women under the gas lamps luring the farm boys. And they tell me you are crooked. And I say, yes, that's true. For I've seen the gunman kill and go free to kill again. And they tell me you are brutal. And my reply is on the faces of women and children. I've seen the marks of wanton hunger. And having answered so, I turn again to those who would sneer at this, my city, and I give them back the sneer. And I say to them, come, show me another city with head lifted, singing, so proud to be alive and coarse and strong and cunning. Flinging magnetic curses amid the toil of piling job upon job. Here is a tall, bold slugger, set vivid against the soft little cities. Eager as a dog with tongue lapping for action, and cunning as a savage, pitted against the wilderness. Bareheaded, shoveling, wrecking, planning, building, breaking, rebuilding. Under the smoke, with dust all over his mouth, and laughing with white teeth. Under the terrible burden of destiny, laughing even as a young man laughs, laughing even as an ignorant fighter laughs who's never lost a battle. Bragging and laughing that under his wrist is the pulse, and under his ribs, the heart of the people. And it's laughing. Laughing, the stormy, husky, brawling laughter of youth. Half naked and sweating, proud to hog butcher, tool maker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads, and the freight handler to the nation. Poetry is the plan for a slit in the face of a bronze fountain book, and the pathway for fresh drinking water. Poetry is a fossil, a rock print of a fin and a wing, with an illegible oath between. Now, not long after I arrived in Chicago, well, it seems I'm to tell you of my second book of poetry, titled Cornhuskers, published 1918. And the prairie was the subject of all those poems. And this book, initially, was not that well received. The New York Times reviewer described it as melancholy. Oh. But Ben Hecht of the Chicago Daily News, he did his own review. And in full disclosure, the Daily News was my paper. They were my employer. And Ben Hecht was my colleague and my friend. And still, I will never forget the day that I opened the paper and I read this. He's our Chicago bard, minstrel of our alleys, troubadour of the wheat patches outside our town, Homer of our sunsets and stockyards. There's more smoke to his song and kick to his heartbeat than Whitman ever coaxed out of his mellow, windbaggy soul. A man in love with life is Sandburg, looking at the world through his heart. The people's poet is Sandburg, poet for the great neg-headed public who laugh at him. To all of them, he makes love. He tells them their secrets on a banjo. There's a snarl and a whine to him, and he sometimes writes with his fists. Out of the slang of his street, out of the brotherhood hokums and the turkey in the straw aesthetic of his day, Sandburg is making the new poetry. He doesn't belong to any of the art movements. He's a movement all himself. He's the only genuine jazz motif in the letters of the day. A motif sonorous and quick, brazen and elusive, the ache of crude passions, the snort of crude laughters, the caress of strong hands. These make love to you out of the poetry of Carl Sandburg. Oh, Ben Hecht, the power of an encouraging word. And that book would go on to win the prize that the following year would be renamed as Pulitzer. New York Times reviewers. Bah! Now, in all my travels, I collected so many memories, but the deepest and the far most lovely were of my wife and 3 daughters. With my family, I had bushels and bushels of extraordinary memories. Memories you can flick me and sting me. Memories you can hold me, even and smooth. One memory that held me so for 59 years was named Lillian Steichen. Now, Jesus wept. Voltaire smiled. William Morris worked. But Sandburg Steichen, oh, we flung the world, 20,000 beautiful, vibrating, fleeting, indomitable, and happy lovebirds, and all singing love songs and swelling the world's joy, even so. We had many pet names that we called one another, and the name that I settled upon for her was Paula. Love to you, Paula. Heart. Love and love. And kisses on your lips and eyes. Lillian. And I made sure I never forgot the occasion of the celebration of her birth. Not every day in Aurora Borealis for your birthday. It is because I love you. I give you a birthday present. The Aurora Borealis. It was a long trip carrying the Aurora Borealis to you. Slippery as the Aurora Borealis. You think you have a hold of it, but it is sliding off your hands and your shoulders, and you have to stop and get a better hold of it. Many times it came near getting away from me, but I struggled with it, and I kept on struggling until I laid on your doorstep, on your front porch, stretching high into the sky, that fine, tall stack of shimmering, swimmering lights, that good old, reliable Aurora Borealis. And if you say you would like another Aurora Borealis, then I will go where the Aurora Borealises grow. And I will struggle and keep on struggling until I lay on your doorstep, on your front porch, one more Aurora Borealis to show I love you. And if you write to me and say you would like a big rainbow, fresh off the sky, then I will struggle and keep on struggling until you see it right there on your doorstep, on your front porch. You can see that I'm a struggler, ready any day to struggle on, to show I love you. And all that love produced 3 glorious daughters, Margaret, Janet, and Helga. Harsk, harsk, 1. Harsk, harsk, the wind blows tonight. What a night for a baby to come into the world. What a night for a melodrama baby to come, with his mother and father wondering what the years will bring on their little stork feet. Until a year when this very baby might be saying on some storm night, with a melodrama baby being born, what a night for a baby to come into the world. Harsk, harsk, the wind blows tonight. Two. Knit, stitch, hemstitch. It is 5 months off. Sheets, bags, and towels, these are the offerings. When he is older, or she's a big girl, there may be flowers, ribbons, money for birthday offerings. Now, however, we must remember that it is a naked stranger coming to us and having a sheath so soft that we must be ready and soft too. knit, stitch, hem stitch. It is 5 months off. 3. It would be easy to pick a lucky star for this baby if a choice of 2 stars lay before our eyes. One, a pearl gold star, and one, pearl silver, with an offer of a chance to pick a lucky star. 4. When the high hour comes, let there be a light flurry of snow. White spots all zigzag against the gray rooftops. The snowborn, they all understand this as a luck wish. With my family, I had bushels and bushels of extraordinary memories. But life, as it is, has the other side of it too. Memories, you can flick me and sting me. One memory that gave our family a tremendous flick and years of painful stings had to do with our firstborn, Margaret. Now, Margaret was a glorious girl. She loved life. She loved learning. She was the star pupil in the new Montessori school of instruction. But at about the age of 9, it became very apparent that something was terribly wrong. She began to have seizures, violent convulsions where she'd fall to the floor, instantly becoming unconscious, and writhe about wildly, gnashing her teeth, her eyes all rolled up in the back of her head, and foam coming out the sides of her mouth and her nostrils. And this would go on for 2 or 3 brutal minutes, with her mother and father completely helpless. And then she would slowly come back to us, drenched in sweat, frightened, exhausted, and having terrible headaches the rest of the day. And maybe this wouldn't return for 3 weeks. And maybe it would be back the next day. And maybe some days were absolutely awful. At one time, she lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks. It was what later would be diagnosed as epilepsy. Dear Margaret, dear Margaret, this is just a little letter from your daddy to say he thinks about you hours and hours. And he knows there was never a princess nor a fairy worth so much love. We are going on a long journey and a difficult fight. You, Mother, and Daddy, and we are going to go on slowly, quietly, hand in hand, the 3 of us, never giving up. And so we are going to win Slowly, quietly, hand in hand, we're going to win. Love, Daddy. Well, right then, I decided I was only going to live in the present with the girls. We knew the worst could come on any day. But if it didn't come, what we got was so much velvet. Every beautiful thing I know is ephemeral. With Janet and Margaret, I am ready for anything, all of the time. Every day I come home and I find them alive, I take as a day snatched from death. And I see, too, how they die every week. The little puff of a Janet we had a year ago, she's dead, gone. The young Margaret learning to talk 3 years ago, she's dead. And she's replaced by an endless chatterer. Every beautiful thing I know is ephemeral, a thing of a moment. Life is a series of things that vanish. I lost 2 brothers to diphtheria, and we had a double funeral on a bitter winter day when I was a boy. I buried a child who had not lived long enough to be named. We're such little things. And so I reckon the girls, well, they're on a loan. And they're only on a loan. They come out of nowhere. And they'll go back to nowhere. Babbling, wild, flying. They die every day like a flower shedding petals. And then they come on again. Poetry is a series of explanations that fade off into, poetry is a series of explanations of life that fade off in horizons too swift for explanations. Poetry is an echo asking a shadow dancer to be a partner. Well, it turned out that Margaret did win, and we all did win. Medication breakthroughs saved her life, and just in time. She lived to be all of 85 years old and was always a glorious girl, daughter, woman. Margaret Mary Steichen Sandburg. Well, it was about the same time. Actually, before Margaret got so sick that I was on the road and writing rutabaga stories. Published 1922, and Rutabaga Pigeons, 1923. And I wrote these for my girls who were often far from me. And I wanted them to have some type of new American literature equivalent to elves and gnomes. And what I came up with were nonsense stories with a lot of American fooling in them. Stories such as how Gimme the Axe found out about the Zigzag Railroad and who made it zigzag. Or the story of Blixie Bimber and the power of the gold buckskin whincher. Or Slipfoot and how he nearly always never gets what he goes after. Or Pig Wisps. Now, these stories were very successful for decades and decades. And my friend, the architect, Frank Lloyd Wright, he told me he liked to read them just before bedtime. He said they filled the long felt want. Poetry. And later, after Pigeons came out, he wrote to me and said, now all those children born in the Midwest in the next 100 years, they're all peeping at you right now, Carl, through little pink fingers, knowing that in these beauties, they found great friends. I was a writer my entire life, and there was never a period of time when I felt more alive and open and free to use all my full and free imagination as when I wrote these stories. And sometimes I believe that as time moves on and all my work fades out, there may be 2 or 3 rutabaga stories still standing. You know, it's been 58 years since I've read a story. And I believe I would like to read you a rutabaga story. May I read you a rutabaga story? Fantastic. Let's do one that was always a favorite of the girls and mine as well. Pig Wisps. There was an oyster king far in the south who knew how to open oysters and pick out the pearls. He grew rich, and all kinds of money came rolling in on him because he was a great oyster opener and knew how to pick out the pearls. Now, the son of this oyster king was named Shovel-Ears, and it was hard for him to remember. He knows how to open oysters, but he forgets to pick out the pearls, said the father of Shovel-Ears. He is learning to remember worse and worse and to forget better and better, said the father of Shovel-Ears. Now in that same place, far in the south, was a little girl with 2 braids of hair twisted down her back and a face saying, "Here we come. Where from?" And her mother called her Pig Wisps. Twice a week, Pig Wisps ran to the butcher shop for a soup bone. Before starting, she crossed her fingers, and then the whole way to the butcher shop kept her fingers crossed. If she met any playmates and they asked her to stop and play cross tag or jackstones or all around the mulberry bush or the green grass grew all around or drop the handkerchief, she told them, "My fingers are crossed and I am running to the butcher shop for a soup bone." Well, one morning, running to the butcher shop, she bumped into a big odd boy and bumped him flat right down onto the sidewalk. Did you look where you were running? She asked him. I forgot again, said Chevaliers. I remember worse and worse, and I forget better and better. Cross your fingers like this, said Pigwisps, showing him how. And he ran to the butcher shop with her, watching her keep her fingers crossed until the butcher gave her the soup bone. After I get it, then the soup bone reminds me to go home with it, she told him. But until I get the soup bone, I keep my fingers crossed. Chevaliers went to his father and began helping his father open oysters. And Chevaliers kept his fingers crossed to remind him to pick out the pearls. He picked 100 buckets of pearls the first day and brought his father the longest, slippery, shining rope of pearls ever seen in the oyster country. How do you do it? His father asked. It is to cross fingers like this, said Chevaliers, crossing his finger like the letter X. This is the way to remember better and forget worse. It was then the Oyster King went and told the men who changed the alphabets just what had happened. And when the men who changed the alphabets heard just what had happened, they decided to put in a new letter, the letter X, near the end of the alphabet, the sign of the crossed fingers. On the wedding day of Pigwisps and Chevaliers, the men who changed the alphabets all came to the wedding with their fingers crossed. Pigwisps and Chevaliers stood up to be married. They crossed their fingers. They told each other they would remember their promises. And Pigwisps had 2 ropes of pearls twisted down her back and a sweet young face saying, "Here we come. Where from?" That is the long felt want. Poetry. Children grow up so fast. Everyone knows how fast they grow. And children, too, are often like the spring wind. The spring wind. Be flip with us if you want to, spring wind. Be lovely and make us sniff at your slow secrets. Be easy with us, spring wind. Be lovely, and yet be lovely not too fast with us. If a child came crying out of a snowstorm and sat down sharing secrets of new playthings, crying because lovelier things than ever came that year. If a child came crying out of sheet ice, a white carving of a lithe running torso and holding in his hands new and baffling playthings, smelling of promises, of yellow roses across the river backwashes, of potato blossoms across the prairie flatlands, and having even so much as just one new honest song to sing, oh, we would say, "Come, sit on our back porch, listen with us and tell us more. Tell us all you know. Tell us the secrets of the spring wind. Tell us if it will be a lucky year. Be lovely, and yet be lovely not too fast with us." Well, I'm beginning to have that feeling I would have now and then on the platforms that maybe I might be talking just a little bit too much. It happens. And it was always a good time to change the gearing with some music. And that guitar. A small friend weighing less than a newborn infant. And ever responsive at all sincere attempts at mutual respect, depth of devotion, or love gone right off the deep end. Actually, this would be an excellent time to tell you of the American Song Bag. Published 1927, a folk song hymnal, words and music. Herein are 280 colonial, pioneer, railroad, miner, hobo, gossamer songs, chants, and ditties. Now, I did not write these songs, but I was the impetus behind collecting them. Because at that time, every single one of these songs were in danger of being lost forever to history. Songs such as C.C. Rider, Midnight Rider, the John B. Sayles, the Sloop, and westerns such as Get Along, Little Dogies, and The Streets of Laredo. I know. Let's do a song I never tired of singing and playing. The Red River Valley. By this valley they say you are leaving. I shall miss your bright eyes and sweet smile, for they tell me you're taking the sunshine that has brightened our paths for a while. Come and sit by my side if you love me. Do not hasten to bid me adieu. Just remember that Red River Valley and the one who has loved you so true. If you know this song, will you sing it with me? Come and sit by my side if you love me. Here we go. Come and sit by my side if you love me. Do not hasten to bid me. Do not hasten to bid me adieu. Just remember the Red River Valley and the one who has loved you so true. Fantastic. What a song. And that song made it into that book because it, like all of the rest, did not have a copyright. And each of those American folk songs were in danger of being lost forever to America. And my gratification about that book is merely that of a patriot who had seen duty and done it. Now, I wanted to share with you that I was more than a little intrigued with one American president. As you can see from these 6 volumes, Abraham Lincoln, the Prairie Years, 1926, the War Years, 1939, Pulitzer. And what I attempted to do right away was try to separate the man from the myth. Because almost immediately after his assassination, he became mythicized. Abraham Lincoln, the prairie years. Almost, there were times when children and dreamers would look to Abraham Lincoln and they lazily let their eyelids half shut and they let their hearts roam about him and they half imagine him to be some type of tall horse, chestnut tree, or a rangy horse, or a big wagon, or a log barn full of new mown hay. There was something else, or more, of a man, a lawyer, a Republican candidate with principles, a prominent citizen. There was something spreading, elusive, and mysterious. He was the strange friend, and he was the friendly stranger. Abraham Lincoln was the mastermind behind an awful civil war. There are over 1 million words on record that he wrote or spoke, and nearly all of it would hold good for the present hour. Lincoln understood the balances required in a democracy between freedom and responsibility. He wrote and spoke the word responsibility nearly as often as he wrote and spoke the word freedom. You cannot have one without the other. If there had been any stubborn grandeur at all in the life of Lincoln, it was in his explanations of the Declaration of Independence and his taking the words, "All men are created equal," not only seriously and solemnly, but passionately. Lincoln knew, with Jefferson, Adams, Franklin, and the makers of the American Revolution, that all men are not equals, but that the accent and the stress should be on opportunity. Equal access to the resources of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To give men this equal chance in life, it was the aim, the hope, the flare of glory spoken by the Declaration of Independence. Poetry is the shuffling of boxes of illusions and buckled with a strap of facts. Poetry is a theorem of a yellow silk handkerchief knotted in riddles, sealed in a balloon, and tied at the tail of a kite flying in a white wind against a blue sky in spring. Well, just as there are boxes and kites, so is there the poet and politics. How the poet relates to societies, to democracies, to monarchies, to dictatorships. As for me, I began a socialist. And if you believe this subject of socialism is easy and that everyone knows what socialism is, then Sit with me, and we'll open to the S's in the Britannica, where we'll find that there have been as many varieties of socialists as there are wild birds that fly in the woods. True democracy, it is as difficult and mystic in its operations as true religion or true art. One of my theses, if I even have any, it hovers around the point that the masses of the people have gone wrong in the past, and they will again in the future. But in the main, it's their direction that's right. This theme was with me my entire career, from Chicago poems. I am the people, the mob. I am the people, the mob, the crowd, the mass. Do you know that all of the great work of the world is done through me? I'm the working man, the inventor, the maker of the world's food and clothes. I am the audience that witnesses history. The Napoleons come from me, as do the Lincolns, and they die, and I send forth more Napoleons and Lincolns. I am the seed ground. I am the prairie that can stand for much plowing. Terrible storms pass over me. I forget. The best of me is sucked out and wasted. I forget. Everything but death comes from me and makes me work and give up all I have. And I forget. Sometimes I growl and shake myself and spatter out a few red drops for history to remember. And then I forget. When I, the people, learn to remember. When I, the people, use the lessons of yesterday to no longer forget who robbed me last year, who played me for a fool. Then there will not be any speaker in all of the world who will say the name, the people, with any fleck of a sneer in their voice or a far-off smile of derision. The mob, the crowd, the mass will arrive then. That published 1916. 20 years later, I wrote the longest book of verse I had ever written. The People, Yes. The People, Yes, number 9. A father sees his son nearing manhood. What shall he say to that son? Life is hard, so be steel, be a rock. And this shall serve him through the humdrums and the monotonies, and guide him amid sudden betrayals and tighten him in slack moments. Life is a soft loam, so be gentle and go easy. And this too shall serve him, for many brutes have been gentled where lashes have failed, and the growth of a frail flower in a path up, it has sometimes shattered and split a rock. A tough will counts, and so does desire, and so does a rich, soft wanting. Without rich wanting, nothing arrives. Tell him too much money has killed men years before burial, and the quest for lucre beyond a few and easy needs has twisted good enough men sometimes into dry and thwarted worms. Tell him time as a stuff, it can be wasted. And tell him to be a fool every now and then, and to have no shame over having been a fool. And yet, learning something out of every folly, hoping to repeat none of the cheap follies, and thus arriving at an intimate understanding in a world numbering many fools. Tell him to be alone often and get it himself. And above all else, to tell himself no lies about himself. Whatever the little white lies and protective fronts he may use amongst other people, tell him solitude is creative if he's strong, and the final decisions are made in silent rooms. Tell him to be different from other people, if it's natural and easy being different. Let him have lazy days seeking deeper motives, and let him seek deep where he is a born natural. And then he may understand Shakespeare, the Wright brothers, Pasteur, Pavlov, Michael Faraday, and free imaginations, bringing changes into a world resenting change. He will be lonely enough for the work he knows as his own. Poetry is a pack sack of invisible keepsakes. Poetry is a mystic and a sensuous mathematics of fire, smokestacks, waffles, pansies, people, and purple sunsets. Is there any easy road to freedom? A relentless man loved France long before she came to shame and the eating of bitter dust. Loving her as mother and torch, as bone of his kith and kin, And he spoke passion, saying, rest? Rest is not a word of free peoples. Rest is a monarchical word. A relentless Russian loved Russia long before she came to bear agony amid valor and rivers of blood. Loving her as mother and torch, as bone of his kith and kin. And he remembered an old Swedish saying, the fireborn are at home in fire. A Kentucky-born Illinoisan found himself, by journey through shadows and prayer, the chief magistrate of the American people, and pleading in words close to low whispers, my fellow citizens, we cannot escape history. The fiery trial through which we pass shall light us down in honor or dishonor to the latest generation. We shall nobly save or meanly lose the last best hope on earth. 4 little words come worth studying over. We must disenthrall ourselves. But what is a thrall? And who are thralls? Men tied down? Or men doped? Or men drowsy? He had hoped to see them shake themselves loose and so be disenthralled. There are freedom shouters and there are freedom whisperers. Both may serve. Have you been too silent? Is there an easy crime of silence? Is there any easy road to freedom? Well, it's getting late. And though I'll be with you a while yet, I believe this would be an excellent time for all of us to go outside in our minds and remember any of those steely black nights when we laid back upon that soft grass and gazed up into the expanse of those great rooms. We have gone through great rooms together. And when upon the steely dark came the roads of a milky mist and a spray of stars, bunches and squares and spatters of stars. And we counted those stars, one by one, 1,000,000 and 1,000,000. And we remembered those stars as fishermen remember fish, as bees remember blossoms, and as crops remember rains. And these were rooms too, we can so reckon. We can always say we have gone through great rooms together. I have had a magnificent opportunity here tonight. And whoever you are, and however it is that you came to be here, I appreciate you. And we've spoken on the many different subjects of reading and writing poetry, but not yet on the subject of time, the granddaddy of them all. I'll say this: the gong of time. Time says, hush. By the gong of time, you live. Listen, and you will hear time saying, you were silent long before you came to life, and you'll be silent long after you leave it. So, why not be a little silent now? Hush yourself, noisy little man. Time hushes all. The gong of time rang for you to come out of a hush, and you were born. The gong of time will ring for you to return again to the same hush you came from. Winners and losers, the weak and the strong, those who say little and try to say it well, and those who prattle and babble their lives away. Time hushes all. When I was 79, I once told a reporter I would probably die propped up in bed trying to write a poem about America. And I often used to say, sing one song if I die. Sing John Brown's Body, or shout all over God's heaven. Or better yet, sing nothing at all. Death comes once. Let it be easy. Stars, songs, faces. Gather the stars if you wish it so. Gather the songs and keep them. Gather the faces of women. Gather for keeping years and years. And then loosen your hands. Let go. Say goodbye. Let the stars and the songs go. Let the faces and the years go. Loosen your hands and say goodbye. Well, that's my story. I always tried to live the way my own soul told me. I listened to what others had to say, both good and bad, about what I ought to do. And then I did as my own soul, my own heart, my own self told me. Poetry is the opening and closing of a door, leaving those who look through to guess at what was seen during a moment. Poetry is the capture of a picture or a song or a flare in a deliberate prism of words. It was on July 22nd, 1967, at our Connemara, North Carolina home, and at the age of 89, that my heart gave way to silence and sleep. And the last word that I spoke was, Paul. And it was my Paula who said this at my memorial. He slowly breathed away. He had a beautiful passing. He now belongs to the world. Paul. And it was from that time until about 75 minutes ago that I have been in a hush.